Lobbies and Gentlegrams, in the race of ranking raps in first place, Bird raised Lil Wayne and put him on the world stage. But with age comes alienation. See, fans are fickle and flocked from Wayne following the fourth dedication. So the Cash Money crown carried new delegation. Birdman noticed new eras emerge and mustered up a new motivation. He shaped and raised Wayne to be placed amongst greats, only to be replaced, and I gotta say, it hurts, man. Battle of the Carters and Barders bolstered by Birdman. Lil Wayne might have let fans down with the Carter 6, but was this the plan all along? Well, let's jump into it. Now, Lobbies and Gentlegrams, this is not a video to talk about the Carter 6 and my gripes with it. I have plenty of content on that. You could check it out on the channel. But I do want to touch on one thing which kind of encapsulates the entire larger issue at hand, which we'll delve into in this video, which is that a lot of people are saying Lil Wayne has always been an artist that's a great rapper, but just kind of raps about a whole lot of nothing. And people are only just waking up to it now because maybe he's so far into his career that the bars are just outdated. But this has always been the bar, the standard that he's been on. And I gotta tell you, that is completely false. Anyone who tells you that has not been listening to Wayne carefully enough over the last damn near 3 decades. All right, let me just take you through just a few examples, right? Because again, this guy has recorded thousands of songs. So are there a lot of them that are just kind of meaningless freestyles where he's just giving you word salads on bars on top of bars about punani and good smoke, cars and money and women, etc.? Yes, of course. But every year from Wayne, you will get some of the most heartfelt, introspective, vulnerable, relevant information that you can ask from a rapper. I'm talking every single year of his career. You could go as far back as the Carter 1 with songs like I Miss My Dogs, where he's paying homage to his fallen Hot Boys members. You can look at his mixtape cuts like Georgia Bush, where he's criticizing the government at the time and how they handled Hurricane Katrina and the impact that that disaster left on his hometown. You can look at records that he never even released officially, songs that just leaked online, songs like Cry Out, one of his most meaningful songs of all time, where he's rapping, stuck in the hood like they put cement on us, ghetto birds still crapping on us, government still quitting on us, lost a few homies and the grief still sitting on us, so we got their names written on us, white folks still spitting on us, police canines' teeth still gritting on us. You could even look as far back as the last Carter album, and a lot of people like to point out the song Let It All Work Out as one of Lil Wayne's most vulnerable songs of all time, but I would argue on that same project, Wayne gives you an even more heartfelt song with Open Letter, where he raps, understand looks are deceiving, looking like I'm looking for some grievance because I've been through way too much, don't want to think about it, cranky about it, gotta drink about it, gotta synchronize it, tranquilize it, doctor ain't prescribing what he ain't realizing, pain inside me got me thinking about me, trying to hang my body, sanctifying, looking in the mirror at the one who know me better, I was too busy to talk, I wrote an open letter. And I say all this to say, this is the first Carter album from Wayne where I feel like aside from a few bars, we really don't see Wayne opening up about any relevant issue that's been going on within his life since the last Carter album that we heard from him. People want to downplay his legacy as if he's never had some sort of emotional depth to his music, and I would tell you this is extreme recency bias, and that's my biggest problem with the Carter 6, is that we have not heard Wayne touch on any of these situations that have transpired throughout his life in the past damn near decade, right? And there's so many of them. I mean, at the very least, he could have spoke on fatherhood. He shares a baby mother with Nipsey Hussle, and briefly touches on how Nipsey's child is like a son to him, but doesn't really expand on the grief that losing a father figure like Nipsey might have left on Lauren and all her kids in that family unit. His daughter has grown up and become, a public figure of her own. We haven't heard him discussing any advice or any experiences he's had with her as she tries to navigate stardom. Same with his son, who's trying to become a full-fledged rapper as well. In, I believe, 2020, Wayne was arrested on his private jet after they found firearms on the plane, and he was looking at 10 years in prison if Donald Trump had not pardoned him. He got a pardon from the president. We haven't heard him mention that in a single song since that happened. He recently hit the road with his former Hot Boys members who he had issues with. He had issues with Birdman. They've all reunited for this tour. We didn't hear him touch on the Super Bowl and how he felt like he got snubbed for that. And he was doing a lot of talking about that in 2024. You haven't heard him touch on the superstars that he ushered into the game, Drake, Nicki Minaj, Tyga, talking about his thoughts on their career development. And biggest of all, Wayne in 2015 was embroiled in a $50 million lawsuit with the man who raised him, who Wayne looked at as a father figure for his entire career, Birdman, and the label that raised him as an artist, Cash Money. He sued them for $50 million. He was not able to release the Carter 5 for about 4 years as that lawsuit progressed. He settled that lawsuit. He's now on tour with Birdman. Everything is good, and we have never heard Wayne touch on this issue, not once, within his music. But he was very vocal about it as it was going down on Twitter, at his concerts. He would talk about retiring multiple times as that lawsuit was going on. And now on this album, the Carter 6, he's talking about how he hasn't thought of retiring. So My question is, what changed? Well, a couple things, a lot of things probably did. And my consensus here is that a lot of the pitfalls Wayne has experienced in not just his personal life, but mainly his career, have been attributed to that $50 million Cash Money lawsuit and everything that transpired throughout that situation. And again, I think this sequence of events here was the catalyst for where we see Wayne today. See, Wayne was in a struggle of survival of not just his career, but his actual life when this whole thing was going down. I've been working on since last year. I have now like 40 pages written, a whole video on Lil Wayne's upbringing with Cash Money and Cash Money's long history of underpaying artists and Birdman's long history of not just robbing Lil Wayne financially, but robbing the people that introduced Wayne to Birdman, robbing Wayne of his innocence at a young age, making it very hard for Wayne to escape Cash Money, but also playing an integral part in the artist development of a Lil Wayne throughout his 3 decades in the game. This is going to be by far my most elaborate, detail-oriented video that I ever put out. I've been spending months and months on this video. But in this one here, I want to focus more so on how once Wayne did leave Cash Money, that is specifically when we noticed, or at least I noticed, the significant downfall in quality of his music, the execution of his products, and the way that Wayne was treated as an artist from a marketing standpoint and just how he's perceived within pop culture. There's a reason why an Eminem, a Jay-Z, a Nas, a 50 Cent are able to enter their later career legs in a more graceful way, and there's a very strong sense of quality control with the products they put out, whereas with Wayne, it kind of feels like he's all over the place. Why is this man 3 decades into his career, multiple diamond records, $1 million in the first week, still performing in nightclubs? Why does he have to stop shows early and fight with his fans on stage because the crowds aren't loud enough? Why did he go from selling almost 500,000 copies in the first week with the Carter 5, $1 million in the first week with the Carter 4 and 3, to now with the Carter 6 selling less than 200,000 copies in the first week? There are specific reasons for all this, and it all ties back to the fact that Lil Wayne was meant to be replaced. And to understand what I mean by Lil Wayne was always meant to be replaced, you have to look at exactly everything Pusha T said in his diss records, not just against Drake, but against the entirety of the Young Money Cash Money collective. See, before he was beefing with Drake, he had his gripes with the way Birdman handled business, and who was directly under Birdman, Birdman's golden goose, the one who was carrying Birdman's label Cash Money on their back for decades upon decades. It was none other than Lil Wayne. When all the Hot Boys members left, Lil Wayne was the only one there, and he actually wanted to leave Cash Money, which we'll touch on shortly. But once he was finally able to actually leave the label about 10 years later, because initially he wanted to leave in 2004, he only ended up leaving in 2014. This is when we noticed that Birdman, despite all the father-son talk, never truly cared about Wayne's financial well-being and only cared to invest in Wayne as an artist when it seemed profitable for the label. And Pusha T predicted all of this in his 2012 track, Exodus 23:1, where he said, "Those guys are not dying for you. Throwing that flag up, running around thinking you're hot, taking half of everything you got. Yeah, those guys are not dying for you. Contract all effed up. I guess that means you all effed up. You're signed to one guy, that's signed to another guy, that's signed to 3 guys. Now that's bad luck. You call it living out your dreams? You can't fly without your wings. You get it? Them guys using you as a pawn. You see, they never loaded their guns. Now you're all out here by yourself. Ask Steve Jobs. Wealth don't buy health." And about 2 years later, when the contracts were peeled back, you'd see everything that Pusha T predicted in this song was correct. No matter if Wayne felt like he was at the top of the world and untouchable throughout his prime years, at the end of the day, that father-son relationship was all business. And if the business didn't look good, no one was dying for you. And like I said before, it was around 2004 that Wayne tried to leave Cash Money after his first contract with them expired. He was teasing that he'd be moving teams over to Jay-Z's Rockefeller Records, but would end up signing another deal with Cash Money, and in that new contract is where they would get the split for Young Money. Young Money's profits were divided 49% to Lil Wayne and 51% to Birdman and Cash Money. An old Cash Money member and former Hot Boys member, Juvenile, back in 2012, around the same time Pusha T released the song Exodus, had actually said in a Complex interview that when Wayne was trying to leave Cash Money Records in the mid-2000s, he went through the same thing. He was trying to find out, how did I leave? What did I do? He wanted to see my paperwork. Wayne really got beat out of all his money and took another contract with Cash Money. That's the part I never understood. But see, in replacement for, Birdman basically taking all of Wayne's money and him not getting the proper profits from his music, what you got in return was essentially an A&R. There was always a pretty high level of quality control that came out of the Cash Money camp. Whether you like Birdman or not, he was not greenlighting projects that he didn't feel were high quality. And of course, given his track record, he has a strong ear for what's hot and what's not. We saw this with the Carter 5, right? That was the main reason for their dispute initially. Birdman was holding Carter 5 hostage. Wayne wasn't able to release it because Birdman didn't feel like it was up to par with the standards of a Carter album. And because of that, Wayne started digging through his contracts and realizing there was a lot of money missing. But if you look at the track record of Cash Money releases, not just from Wayne, but from everyone in that camp, you could definitely see that there was a standard that was held there. And all the artists, once they left Cash Money, that's when the quality started dipping. I mean, you could see it with all the Hot Boys members, right? Name me a memorable Juvenile, Turk, or BG album that was released once they left Cash Money. Tyga suffered a similar issue, right? His debut album actually wasn't half bad. There was a lot of decent songs on there. His second project wasn't fully up to par, but there were still a couple hits. And by the time the third project rolled around, it wasn't up to the standard that the label felt was reasonable to actually put it out. So Tyga ended up getting shelved and had to buy himself out of his Cash Money contract. And then he released the album, and it's safe to say there was a valid reason why the label didn't want to release it. Look at Drake as well, right? The last Drake album released on Cash Money Records was Scorpion. Tell me how you think the direction of his catalog has been headed after Scorpion with albums like CLB or Honestly Nevermind versus everything that was on Cash Money. From Nothing Was the Same, if you're reading this, is Too Late, Take Care. I'm not saying this is all attributed to Birdman, but when you're signed to a massive label like Cash Money, you have all the resources at your disposal. Strong feature artists, strong producers, A&Rs that can make sure the sequencing of your album is up to par, right? And when you go independent or simply venture off on your own, you're left to pay for all these things out of your own pocket, out of your team's pocket, right? And I say all this to say, Birdman maintained a certain level of quality control on every Wayne project that was ever released. Carter 1 to Carter 4, you could say what you want about them, but none of these Wayne albums were ever released without massive global hits, right? And you could see it with certain albums. They would continuously get delayed until the label could start working singles. Like with Carter 4, they started working 6 Foot, 7 Foot, How to Love, building the anticipation to make sure that the album had a big debut once it actually released. Wayne left the label with the Carter 5, and what have we got since then? Funeral, No Ceilings 3, now the Carter 6, each project progressively dipping worse and worse in quality. And again, Wayne is still a top-tier rapper, top-tier lyricist. He can still rap with the best of them, but he has no idea how to structure songs on his own, how to sequence projects, how to make cohesive records, how to actually create songs with replay value. We even saw Swiss Beats have to take an entire song where Wayne was just freestyling and chop up certain segments that were memorable to make the hook. Songs like Uproar, and that was the last real big hit that Wayne had on his own. Wayne has always worked best when he has a team around him. But by the time 2014 rolled around, before Wayne even filed this lawsuit, when the Carter 5 kept seeing these delays and it wasn't looking like the label wanted to release it, there might have been a bigger issue at play. And again, that's why I go back to the fact that Pusha T called all of this and that it seemed like there was a calculated plan to replace Lil Wayne. So when I say replace Lil Wayne, there was a lot of things going on around this time, right? You could argue that Wayne wanted someone to replace him. That's why he partnered with Birdman to start Young Money. That's why he had always said the artists on Young Money were better than him, and he wanted to introduce himself and the Carter 3 and all these big moments for himself first, because when the time rolled around for his Young Money artists to do their thing, they would far surpass him.
Got this rapper from Canada, his name is Drake. He's real good. He's actor and all that. He's in the Bercy High. They're all better than me. That's why I came on first. Y'all gonna love me. But once they come out, y'all gonna forget about me. I got my man Lil Chucky.
And we definitely saw this happen, right? Drake, Nicki, they'd go on to have monstrous hits. Arguably in the early 2010s, they had a lot more hits and a lot bigger hits than Wayne was having in that time period. And that was fine, right? Because again, Wayne owned 49% of Young Money. Both those two artists were signed to Young Money. So if they ate, it meant Wayne ate. That's why he'd rap on songs. We're going to be all right if we put Drake on every hook. But once you find out that Wayne wasn't getting properly compensated on his own artists, it paints a different picture because Wayne's letting his own career take a back seat in order for his artist to shine. But if he's not getting paid off his artists, and the only way he could eat is off his own music, but he's already deliberately let his spotlight kind of simmer for the sake of his artists, then when he tries to make a comeback to make a living, things don't look as bright. It's not as easy to sell out massive tours and to sell albums. And we saw, glimmers of this in the early 2010s, right? Carter 4 was a massive moment. That was, built off the hype of Wayne going to jail, Carter 3 being such a huge moment, and that anticipation just building for what Wayne was going to do next within the Carter series. But by the time Carter 5 was announced, the climate had changed drastically. This was in 2014, and you had Drake at the top of the game, Nicki at the top of the game. Wayne's last project was I'm Not a Human Being 2, which did not see anywhere near close to the success of the album before that, the Carter 4, and a lot of the biggest hits had big assists from other artists. It wasn't really Wayne leading the show. You had Love Me with Future and Drake, where they're both on the hook. You had No Worries with Detail. Wayne was still a big rapper, but the last massive solo hit he had was 3 years before that with How to Love. We're in 2014 now. It's a whole other atmosphere. And you're seeing that immediately when Wayne announces that Carter 5 is going to drop in May of 2014. The moment didn't seem nearly as big as the announcements for the Carter 4 or the Carter 3. The anticipation wasn't anywhere near as big, and he tried to drop several singles in 2014, with none of them sticking. The biggest one was an assist from Drake with the song Believe Me, which didn't even crack the top 20 of the Billboard Hot 100, which is a far cry from the Carter 4 singles, which all were top 10 hits. And Birdman obviously noticed this because Carter 4 kept getting delayed. Initially, it was supposed to come out in May 2014. It got delayed to the fall of 2014. October. It never came out in October, then it was delayed to December. Once the time December came around, Wayne got on Twitter and said the label was holding it hostage and not paying him. He wanted off of Cash Money, nothing to do with them, and he was suing them for $50 million. But throughout that summer of 2014, as Carter 5 kept getting delayed, you saw Birdman move on to another venture, which was a lot more profitable for him at the time. And that was one of my favorite collectives of the Cash Money timeline, Ricch Gang. Birdman teamed up with Young Thug and Rich Homie Quan to create one of the most eccentric, influential, and exciting duos of the 2010s. We got the song Lifestyle, we got the classic mixtape The Tour, and anywhere Birdman went, Young Thug went. So much so to the point that Wayne was even hopping on songs with Young Thug. Wayne was making club appearances with Young Thug very early on when Thug was still in the beginning stages of his career. It was almost as if he had signed a deal with Cash Money. The same way Birdman used to be all up in every single one of Wayne's music videos. You would hear Birdman doing his little hand rubs and ad-libs in Wayne tracks. You never saw a Wayne album without a Birdman feature. This was now the case with Young Thug. And Young Thug always cited Wayne as his greatest inspiration. I mean, look at this song and tell me this doesn't sound like an exact replica of Lil Wayne's right above it.
Dog go in, curfew, and all of my riders do not give a X game. Tell me how you love it. I told Wayne I was ready for the paper like Usher. Yes, I'm in the building, you just on the list of guest names.
It was no secret that Young Thug took massive, I don't even want to call it inspiration. He was basically a Lil Wayne clone. His dream at the beginning was to be signed to Lil Wayne's Young Money Records, but that wasn't the case. And it kind of seemed like an innocent thing that made sense at the beginning, right? Young Thug took massive inspiration from Wayne. A lot of his sound was the offspring of a sound that Lil Wayne birthed. So yeah, why not pair Young Thug up with the entire Cash Money collective? We saw him do collaborations with a bunch of Young Money artists from Tyga to Nicki. He had unreleased songs with Drake, and again, even Wayne himself. And Birdman, of course, was the orchestrator of this entire thing, putting out mixtapes with Young Thug, doing features for Young Thug, ad-libbing all his tracks, being in his music videos, etc. But you gotta think at this time, right? Lil Wayne is announcing the 5th installment to one of the biggest album series in all of hip-hop, The Carter. Meanwhile, Birdman is spending more time developing Young Thug as an artist than he is into investing into Lil Wayne's highly anticipated upcoming album. In fact, it was the opposite. He kept delaying the project. And once Lil Wayne made the announcement that he wanted off the Cash Money label, things kind of aligned and made sense, right? Birdman was trying to build this new regime, a new era of Cash Money, so that he wouldn't be left in the dust if Drake left the label after his contract expired, if Wayne left the label after his contract expired, or even worse, if Wayne fell off Birdman wouldn't be left with nothing, right? He'd have the son of Lil Wayne, Young Thug. So I guess this would make Birdman Young Thug's grandfather, right? Since he was Lil Wayne's father. Does that make sense? And as Birdman is giving this massive support to Young Thug, Lil Wayne's Carter 5 singles are getting zero support. Like, you guys probably don't even remember that these songs existed. Songs like Crazy, Do Say, Start a Fire, Believe Me. Some of these songs were very strong. They got no traction. And again, you need big label investment and marketing budgets in order to push these songs to the top of the charts. And you want them at the top of the charts because that's how optics look good, right? If people hear them all over the radio, all over social media, whatever the case is, and then they say, okay, let me check out what this artist is planning to do, you have these massive songs and you're about to release an album, it creates this momentum and aesthetic that this album is about to be larger than life. They weren't putting that investment into Wayne on the Carter 5 like they did with the Carter 4. The budget was going to Young Thug as Birdman was trying to sign him. So much so to the point where it almost seemed like Birdman stopped caring about, the entire YMCMB Young Money Cash Money imprint. Like, he was only yelling out Ricch Gang, all his clothes, his merch, his ad-libs, his mixtape covers. It seemed like the Young Money era was kind of coming to an end. You have to also remember, again, Drake and Nicki had already become full-fledged superstars at this point. They're 3-4 albums into their contracts. Typically, these contracts expire or renew after 4 albums. So there's a high probability that they leave the Young Money imprint as well around this time. Birdman's anticipating all this and trying to build the foundation for the next leg of Cash Money's dominance within the industry. And given the investment or lack of investment that they're putting into Wayne's upcoming project, it seemed like Wayne being at the forefront of the Cash Money empire at this point was definitely not the priority for the label. Nah, the priority was Young Thug. Like I mentioned before, Birdman was trying to sign him. They dropped this mixtape called The Tour, which was supposed to be in anticipation for a tour that Birdman and Thug were about to go on. And in October of 2014, after many delays of the Carter 5 by Lil Wayne, Young Thug announces to MTV that he's planning on doing a very bold thing, which some could consider homage, some could consider disrespect, by naming his debut album, which again, might have been on Cash Money because Birdman was trying to sign him before he put out his first album. He was going to name that first album The Carter 6. He said that Wayne did 1 through 5. I'm going to do 6 through 10. Birdman was actually in this interview and didn't say a word as Young Thug said that. But it seemed alright because in that same month, Lil Wayne and Young Thug do a collaboration under Ricch Gang called Take Care. And in that same month, October, Lil Wayne announces again that the Carter 5 is facing some delays. But the excuses he gives here are a little strange to say the least. I mean, he dubs it up to the fact that he has too many songs here and he doesn't want to cheat his fans, and that 31 songs couldn't fit on a CD, so they had to find a way to kind of, make sure all the music got to the fans. And so for that reason, they're going to do a part 1 and part 2 of the Carter 5, and that they needed to still delay the whole album by about 2 months. I don't see why, even in the CD age, right, before streaming platforms were a big thing, I don't think you needed 2 months to print all the CDs, part 1s and 2s, and get them shipped out. I mean, we saw Drake just about 2 months later in February of 2015 drop If You're Reading This It's Too Late with no physical copies or anything. It was very last minute, very surprised. So this excuse was weird to me, but let me know what you guys think.
I know the album is supposed to drop today, the Carter 5 album, but we had to push the album back due to a problem. That problem being, I've been skating too much and I just totally forgot about motherfucking Carter, man. All I do is skate. I remember honestly, I got too many songs recorded and I worked on way too much to just give y'all half of it. And if I'd have dropped the album today, it would have had to be probably like 12 or 13 songs. And I was like, I refuse to do it. I refuse to cheat my fans. I refuse to cheat myself. We have to come up with a way to give these people every song that I've been in here recording. And so we came up with that idea. The first part of the Carter 5 album will be dropping December 9th.
Then, of course, December rolls around where we're supposed to get part 1 of the Carter 5, and Lil Wayne gets on Twitter on December 4th, 2014 to say, "To all my fans, I want you to know that my album won't and hasn't been released because Baby, aka Birdman, and Cash Money refuse to release it. I want off this label and nothing to do with these people, but unfortunately, it ain't that easy." And here's where you get the truth, right? Baby and Cash Money refuse to release the Carter 5. The same month that Young Thug announces the Carter 6, Lil Wayne announces that the Carter 5 is about to be delayed. Birdman's out on tour with Young Thug and Travis Scott. Lil Wayne announces that he wants off Cash Money and they're not releasing his album. And things only get worse. Lil Wayne puts out an entire mixtape, Sorry for the Wait 2, full of disses against Birdman. Birdman doesn't respond back, but Young Thug is very heavy on the Carter 6 promo.
Carter 6 coming. The Bada 6 coming, yeah. The Bada 6 bumming. The Bada 6 bumming, yeah.
He announces that the album's gonna drop in April of 2015. And keep in mind now, he's about to drop a Carter album while Lil Wayne is locked up in his contract and his label is refusing to drop his Carter album. Can you see here how this is a little bit more than a situation of simply the tide shifting? This was a calculated attempt at taking an artist who took so much of Lil Wayne's blueprint, signing him to the same label, having him roll around with the same group of people, have him name his album after a classic series from your leading artist, and make this the brand new flagship artist of Cash Money. But not just a brand new flagship artist, an artist who took their entire DNA from your previous artist. And you conveniently do this while you financially and creatively imprison Lil Wayne. And Lil Wayne didn't like this too much. He got on stage at a nightclub performance talking about, don't buy albums from anyone who's posing naked on their album covers, because Young Thug was posing naked on the Barter 6 album cover. He had threatened to sue Young Thug, so Young Thug changed the name of the album from Carter 6 to Barter 6. Lil Wayne's daughter even stepped in saying, is he trying to be funny with this Carter 6? Because it's pretty childish to me. Try again if you're even trying to get on my father's level. Young Thug got on Instagram and said, I understand that Lil Wayne is frustrated about his career and I feel him on that, but this is my idol. I would never in my life swap words with him or beef with him about nothing. This is a person I look up to. Haha. And just a few days after that, we get this very disturbing post from Young Thug on Instagram, which of course at this point has been very long deleted. This is around 2015. So he uploads a video to Instagram that features various clips of himself performing while a woman narrates what seems to be disses at Lil Wayne and Young Money. The narration goes, Big killer, young N-word, young effing money, F you, I kill you. Why this is disturbing is because of the sequence of events that would follow over the next couple of months. So what's ironic to me is that both Lil Wayne and Young Thug at this point in their careers are going on these tours at nightclubs. And you have to remember, again, Lil Wayne at this point is 2 decades into his career. He's about to put out the Carter 5. He sold 1 million in the first week twice with the Carter 3 and 4. Young Thug is at the beginning stage of his career, has not put out a single actual studio album yet both of them are doing tours in nightclubs. It kind of shows you the way that both of them were set up by their actual team, right? Why is Wayne this late in his career doing a tour in a nightclub? Anyways, Young Thug is about to release the Carter 6 and he gets back on Instagram a couple days before he puts it out and says, YSL, Carter 6 coming out Friday. First show, New Orleans, Hollygrove, F, N-word, meet me there. Better yet, beat me there. In the background of this video, there's a bunch of people toting firearms, and of course, Hollygrove is Lil Wayne's hometown, right? And that's where Young Thug plans on doing the first show after the Carter 6 or the Barter 6 gets released, when Lil Wayne has been very vocal about his disapproval over Young Thug using this album title.
Yeah, YSL. Carter 6 coming out Friday, first show. New Orleans, Hollygrove. Meet me there, better yet, beat me there, you did. With them too. Yeah.
Coincidentally, however, on that same exact night that Young Thug actually did go to Louisiana, Hollygrove, to perform, Lil Wayne was performing in Young Thug's hometown of Atlanta. Isn't this all very ironic, right? Like, Thug was a Lil Wayne clone, using the same album title, going to Wayne's hometown to promote that album title, while Lil Wayne is going to Young Thug's hometown to promote his album title, the same album title, Carter 5 and Carter 6. Anyways, while Lil Wayne is performing in Young Thug's hometown of Atlanta, things go okay. For Young Thug, they don't go so great. He actually gets booed on stage in Louisiana. But while Lil Wayne is heading out of the venue, things take a turn for the left. On the highway, Lil Wayne's tour bus actually ends up getting attacked with a firearm. A shooting occurs, and oddly enough, a couple days later, Young Thug actually does an interview with NDO Radio where he confirms that he officially did not sign to Cash Money Records, instead signing to 300 Entertainment. He said him and Birdman are just friends and actually ended up dissing Wayne again, saying that he planned on naming his next project the Carter 5, since Lil Wayne hasn't released it. right? He said, I don't know what the F they be doing, so I'm going to put this mother effer out for him. You could tell at this point, this is definitely a troll, right? And again, Young Thug has Birdman in his ear this entire time. Now, Young Thug's Barter 6 goes on to be a success. Meanwhile, Lil Wayne announces that he's going to be teaming up with Jay-Z streaming company Tidal to release a free album titled Free Weezy Album. Jay-Z is here helping Lil Wayne kind of make a little bread off his music while he waits for his lawsuit against Cash Money to be settled, right? Now, to go the extra step to prove that not only was Birdman and Cash Money not willing to release the Carter 5 or properly compensate Lil Wayne, they also weren't letting him release his music for free on other platforms, as they threatened to sue Jay-Z and Tidal if Lil Wayne went to another outlet to independently release his music. So Wayne at this point is stuck between a rock and a hard place, right? His label won't pay him, so if he releases music, he's not getting properly compensated. He's waiting to get properly compensated by suing the label, so he can't release the music. He can't go anywhere else because he's tied to this Cash Money contract, so there's no music that could get released, right? And in the meantime, you might be wondering, aside from blocking his music and threatening to sue if Wayne goes somewhere else to release it, and aside from investing in this Lil Wayne clone releasing Barter and Carter albums without Lil Wayne's name on them, do the initiatives to actually have Lil Wayne replaced escalate any further than just artistic and financial disputes? Well, again, remember back to April 2015 when Wayne does that concert in Atlanta and his tour bus gets shot at. Well, the actual vehicle sustained $20,000 worth of damages, and while no person was actually injured, there might have been some bigger intent behind just causing damage to this tour bus. The actual driver of the bus, Alvin Lewis, had recalled the incident and what went down, saying that they started at the back of the bus, they shot my engine, they shot my radiator, and just started shooting all down the side of the bus. But here's where the story gets very suspect. So the buses were heading on to the I-285 highway, leaving the venue that Wayne was performing at, and the shots came from a person in a white 2015 Chevrolet Camaro. The shooter was later identified as Jimmy Pee Wee Roscoe Winfrey, who at the time was alleged to be the road manager for Young Thug. And you could see him in this video with Young Thug, where Young Thug is talking about going to Hollygrove to do a show. He's also pictured in the halftime music video and a couple other pictures with Young Thug as well. He definitely knows Thug. According to the same bus driver, Alvin Lewis, Pee Wee Roscoe had confronted him and threatened the bus earlier in the night, saying, "This is my city, keep effing around and I'll spray the bus." When investigating the incident later on, they discovered that Pee Wee Roscoe had actually placed 8 phone calls to Young Thug in a 12-minute window right before the shooting when police were escorting Lil Wayne's tour buses through Cobb County. Immediately after the shooting, Pee Wee Roscoe then called a phone number that was registered to Birdman. Pee Wee Roscoe was eventually arrested for the crime, and prosecutors had asserted that these calls demonstrated planning and communication amongst Pee Wee Roscoe, Young Thug, and Birdman around the event. More specifically, Cobb County prosecutors released an indictment charging Pee Wee Roscoe with multiple crimes, including RICO violations, gang activity, and aggravated assault, and the indictment named Young Thug and Birdman as uncharged co-conspirators, alleging that the shooting was motivated by the ongoing feud between Lil Wayne and Young Money Records. And later on in October of 2018, audio of a jailhouse phone call from Birdman to Pee Wee Roscoe had surfaced, and in the recording, the voice that is believed to be Birdman states, "It's time for you to come out here and get your money, man. You did everything you could do, boss. It's an eye-opener, bruh. Strictly business, man." Now, it's important to note that Birdman's camp would later claim that the call was related to business affairs and denied having any connection to the shooting, but you guys tell me how you interpret those words.
Time for you to come out here and get this money, nephew. Your money, you done blessed. You did everything you could do, bro. It's an eye-opener, bro. You know what I'm saying? Out here on that strictly business, man.
I don't know what other business they could be talking about, right? I mean, we never really saw Jimmy Winfrey in the picture in terms of Young Thug's business, in terms of doing his own side business with Birdman, but again, things can be going on behind the scenes that we don't know. Just a little strange that Young Thug was called 8 times right before the shooting occurred, and then a phone number attached to Birdman was called right after the shooting occurred, and while Pee Wee is in jail, this phone call occurs between him and Birdman. In November of 2015, Pee Wee pled guilty to a subset of the 27 charges and was sentenced to 10 years in prison. By July 2018, the Supreme Court actually overturned his conviction, ruling that the trial judge improperly pressured Pee Wee into pleading guilty by threatening harsher sentencing if he went to trial. And by August of 2020, Pee Wee entered a new guilty plea to 2 counts under Georgia's Street Gang Terrorism and Prevention Act. He received a 7-year sentence, credited for time served, and was expected to be released shortly after. And in November of 2016, the tour bus driver, Lil Wayne's tour bus driver, Alvin Lewis, filed a civil lawsuit against Birdman, Young Thug, Pee Wee, Cash Money, and Young Money, and the complaint claimed that Roscoe was promised $250,000 plus a Porsche by Birdman to carry out the shooting. The driver had used both the jailhouse call and phone logs as evidence that Birdman financially incentivized the attack, and a judge subsequently granted a gag order on the case for some time after the jail call had surfaced. What this essentially means is the judge had paused the lawsuit and issued a gag order to prevent media influence and protect any potential future criminal trials that may involve Birdman or Young Thug due to the new evidence that emerged, aka the jail call between Birdman and Pee Wee Roscoe. The jail call raised serious questions, so the court likely wanted to avoid compromising ongoing investigations. It also gave time for the legal situation to become clearer before allowing the civil case to move forward. As of now, we don't have any verdict on this civil case, and Pee Wee Roscoe is now a free man, after of course pleading guilty to the charge. And this was kind of the end to the strangest saga in the Birdman and Young Thug versus Lil Wayne timeline, right? And what's kind of sad is that Lil Wayne has just released the Carter 6, but it doesn't hold a candle to the Barter 6. So in an extremely bittersweet and dark way, this was kind of like a passing of the torch from one generation to the next. The only thing is, it was done by force. By not properly paying Lil Wayne what he was owed, by not properly putting the marketing budget in for the Carter 5, and instead using that money that should have went in Wayne's pockets to instead promote and develop Young Thug as an artist, Birdman indirectly caused an irreparable halt to the momentum that Lil Wayne had been experiencing up to the point of 2014. The craziest part of all, like I said at the beginning of this video, is that even though Birdman had kind of pulled the brakes on advancing Lil Wayne's career from a marketing perspective, a financial perspective, his involvement in Lil Wayne's career would prove to be a lot more substantial than we had thought, given the trajectory of where Wayne headed after leaving Cash Money and attempting to venture off and do things on his own. Lil Wayne would go on for years, giving us several mixtapes, a couple albums, doing a whole lot of small venue concerts and club appearances. And while he was stuck in this legal limbo, the aesthetic, the whole essence of Lil Wayne, the star power of his brand just kind of kept diminishing as Young Thug's was elevating. And this is no longer to focus on Young Thug, right? Because after the shooting thing, after the Barter 6, he announced officially that he was not signing to Cash Money, so his involvement in this story is no longer really relevant. He went on to do amazing things on his own. And really indirectly, he ended up filling Wayne's shoes, kind of like what Birdman had planned all along, right? He ended up having a massive influence on hip-hop. He ended up, similar to Lil Wayne, having an explosively high quantity of projects year after year. He even did a rock album like Lil Wayne. You could tell his punch-in, punch-out recording process was extremely inspired by Wayne. Obviously, his use of autotune as well. He really arguably became the next Lil Wayne, right? But now as far as where the real Lil Wayne actually is, well, again, with year after year, with subpar mixtape after subpar mixtape, it was almost inevitable that we would get to the point of the Carter 6, right? There was no investment behind Lil Wayne anymore. After that Cash Money lawsuit, Lil Wayne has not done an arena tour since then. Again, only club appearances and smaller venues. When he puts out a project, you rarely ever see a track list full of high quality, high value producers or feature artists. Is Wayne doing what he wants, what makes him happy? You could say so, but would he be a lot happier with more accolades, more success? I would argue yes, considering the fact that he has been relentless in not stopping dropping music. But nothing he puts out feels like it has the care, the quality to it that it did when he was with Cash Money. And throughout this time, it wasn't just that it looked like, Lil Wayne's stock had lowered. It also looked like he wanted to call it quits. He threatened retirement multiple times, whether that was due to the frustration of battling this whole thing out in court or the abandonment he felt from Birdman. Whatever the case is, throughout this time period, he had toted the idea of quitting several times. And because of that, a lot of artists had jumped to Wayne's defense. You saw Rick Ross jump in there with a song called Idols Become Rivals. He had been a longtime collaborator of Birdman, of Lil Wayne. He saw the way Birdman raised Wayne. He was really there for it all, and he rapped, "You stole them boys' publishing and bought a foreclosure. You would give us self-esteem, motivate our drive, but was in our pockets by the time we could count to 5. I pray you find the kindness in your heart for Wayne. His entire life, he gave you what there was to gain. I watched that Bugatti that you're driving, and I'm gonna be honest, not the way that I was vibing. You would never give my guy Wayne his masters. I was on a mission to blow. To you was loyal and showed. I used to look up to you, not no more." And people were killing Birdman in the media, right? Like, this was the whole era of, like, put some respect on my name when he went to the Breakfast Club and he checked Charlemagne for talking crazy on him. People were killing Birdman in the media. So Pusha T comes out with Infrared, and a lot of you guys remember that song for him dissing Drake. But just like with Exodus 23:1, where he predicted a lot of how this would turn out between Lil Wayne and Birdman, you know, Birdman giving Wayne all this luxury, buying him cars, clothes, whatever, but not actually being there to the very end, not actually dying for him. He also predicted a lot of what we would see Wayne go through on the song Infrared, where he raps, "Oh, now it's okay to kill baby," aka Birdman. People looked at me crazy like I really killed a baby. Salute Rick Ross, because the message was pure. He's seen what I see when you see Wayne on tour. Flash without the fire. Another multi-platinum rapper trapped and can't retire. People get exposed. I see the cracks and I'm the liar. And unfortunately, this is kind of how things played out, right? Like Pusha T said here, right? Another multi-platinum rapper that's trapped and can't retire. Lil Wayne is out here for years and years doing these small venue appearances, doing these club performances, putting out music that's not really elevating his brand to the point where he can move from the clubs and the small venues to the arenas and make an actual bag, right? Finally, he gets released from his Cash Money contract. They've come to some sort of settlement, and Wayne ends up selling his publishing back to UMG. And this in and of itself is suspicious, right? Because Lil Wayne was suing Cash Money and UMG. UMG owned Cash Money. Then he goes back to make a settlement with them and ends up giving his entire catalog back to the same people he was suing for a certain price tag. I mean, think about what this catalog entails, right? It entails Wayne's music, Nicki's music, and Drake's music, and even part of Tyga's music, right? I mean, Wayne is over 40 years old, right? Look at the Jay-Z's, the Nas's, the 50 Cents. I mean, if you see them touring, you see them touring in big venues. You don't see them doing every club appearance they possibly could just to collect a check. You don't see them putting out half-baked projects just for the sake of it. When they pop out, it's a moment. You don't see them selling their catalogs as well to major record labels, because at this late in the game, when you're 40, 50 years old, like, these are catalogs that you should expect to retire on. With all that you've accomplished, at this point, your legacy should be strong enough to carry you into retirement. You shouldn't have to resort to the nightclubs or selling your publishing when you own part of the rights to some of the biggest artists in the world right now. Yourself being one of the biggest artists, Nicki, Drake. And Pusha T warned about this all along, right? He was killing Baby. He was killing the way that Birdman conducted business and how he would inevitably leave all his artists out to dry. And now he says, this is exactly what I see happened with Lil Wayne. Flash without the fire. The fire is not there. The spark, the marketing, the big, larger-than-life image that was portrayed behind Lil Wayne for a long time is no longer there. Instead, he's stuck on tour. He cannot retire. He's stuck resorting to selling his catalog instead of letting the residual checks come in week after week. He's got to take that one lump sum for whatever reason. I'm not going to pocket watch and say that he's broke, but he also in 2018 had a $14 million tax bill that was unpaid. And he claims that Jay-Z helped him pay his taxes. Whether that means Jay-Z paid it for him, whether that means Jay-Z helped him kind of sort things out, Wayne owed $14 million to the bank. Wayne is still here nostalgia baiting his fans by continuing the Carter series, even though he's not mentally or creatively in the proper shape to actually give us a project that is held to the standard of that album series, right? Again, it's saying something if the Barter 6 ended up being higher quality than the Carter 6. But there's a reason why he's calling it the Carter 6, right? There's a reason why tapping back into that nostalgia is valuable, especially since now Wayne does own the rights to his music. It's no longer Cash Money. His catalog with Cash Money was sold back to the very people who he sued, the very people who put the brakes on his career. But the same people were both making and breaking his career. Because again, when you see Lil Wayne today, it's the flash without the fire. Everything from the hits, The aesthetic, the sound, the production, the features, the overall quality of the songs, the rollout of the projects, the tours. It hasn't seemed larger than life. It hasn't seemed up to par since Birdman was around. But ironically enough, it only started going downhill way back in 2014 when Birdman effectively put the brakes on the marketing and production behind the Carter 5, and instead devoted all that power, resources, and energy into developing Young Thug. It's left Lil Wayne, as Pusha T said, as a flash without the fire, another multi-platinum rapper trap that can't retire. But let me know what you guys think, and I will catch you in the next one.